The second and final day of the 2023 PSRG-Richardson HSSE Forum brought together industry stakeholders to discuss key developments shaping health, safety, security, and the environment space. The first session was an opportunity to examine sustainability in the environment, especially in Niger Delta, climate change effects, and the need for resilient development and food security.
So I will start with extreme weather events. The truth is that it's all tied to climate change. I don't know, is there still anybody here who does not believe that there's climate change and that they are just deceiving us? I ask that question because in certain parts of the world, even where you have evidence in abundance, there's still some that think that it's one of those geological events that happen every 50 years or 100 years, that it's a natural phenomenon. The bottom line is this: the data is unassailable. We have so much information that makes it clear that climate change is induced by human activity and that we need to do something about it. So it's basically a shift in climate and weather patterns over the long term. And we have evidence over the world, like I said, typically melting ice, melting snow cover, disappearing glaciers. The glaciers one is particularly, what would I call it, it's a bit saddening if you follow the story of the glaciers. In fact, in Iceland, they carried out an obituary, right, for one particular glacier because they realized that, it was gone. In Iceland, they've named a number of their glaciers, right? But this particular one, they realized it was gone. And many things are happening. What is worse, with this disappearance of the glaciers, they are creating channels, areas where we had ice all year round and vessels couldn't pass. Human beings are very wise now. They've decided that they are going to create channels so ships can go to those places. So you can imagine what will happen to the other glaciers. But climate change is worsened by deforestation. Some of you may not know that Nigeria is a capital of a few things, right? World capital for poverty by 2021, right? And also capital for the desertification globally. There's no other part of the world where we have a higher rate of deforestation, rather, than in Nigeria. Nowhere else.
Climate change is altering the frequency and intensity of extreme weather and climatic events, with some regions experiencing increase in floods, droughts, windstorms, tropical storms like your tropical cyclones, your hurricanes, your tornadoes, and extremes of temperatures, especially heat waves. And these extreme weather events may result into disasters. When you have disasters, that is, situations where the capacity of the communities, the governments exceeds their, the ability to cope with what is being experienced. Like you have the 2012 flood disaster in Nigeria. 2022 also, we had flood disasters. And you have disasters in different parts of the world too. You talk about Somalia, you have in drought, you have, and so on.
So what is food security? Let me just go directly to it. The United Nations actually said that food is an absolute human right. That is, everybody is entitled to a meal. If I ask, is anybody here today who has not eaten for 3 days? I'm sure nobody will raise up. But we know that without food, and water, we may not be able to live for more than a week. Of course, without those who fast, with water and without food, maybe 2 to 3 months. So food is very, very essential. But it's sad to know that close to 800 million people out of the global population of 8 billion are actually suffering from hunger or undernourishment. And that's FAO statistics, which also define food as when all people, and food security as when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, we should take note of that, sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and food preference for an active and healthy life. So it's all-encompassing, and that is captured in 3 main pillars. The pillar of affordability, the pillar of availability, the pillar of quality and safety, and that of sustainability.
The second session discussed the dynamics of financing for Nigeria's oil and gas industry.
Okay, so ultimately, what we are set out to do as part of our mandate is to provide opportunity for businesses to be established, whether it's large scale, small scale, or medium enterprise businesses. So apart from establishment, we also support expansion of existing businesses and their modernization as may be required. And lastly, sometimes, the businesses can be challenged. We also support their rehabilitation. So it's an entire gamut of things that we do to try to ensure that we support the industrial sector. Next slide, please. We are a mandate bank, so we are owned by Central Bank of Nigeria and Federal Ministry of Finance largely. And so ideally, you see us as a government bank. That is all, that's where it ends. We actually behave like a private sector organization to a large extent. Because for you to be able to transform the industrial sector, you must have very innovative mindset and people who are not likely to be dragging their feet with respect to getting transactions done. But principally, our mandate is driven by two major government policies: the Economic Growth Plan and then the Nigerian Industrial Revolution Plan. And that Industrial Revolution Plan has broken the industrial sector into various components, from food processing through oil and gas to renewable energy, all the way to creative industries. But beyond that, we also realize that there's a particular emphasis of government to try to support women and youth businesses. So we also have created structures around having bespoke solutions for women businesses. So we have a whole gender business group that looks at women businesses across the divide.
So I'll be talking about financing, oil and gas, amidst energy transition. I'm sure we have all heard about energy transition, COP26, 27, fossil fuel, renewable energy, the European Union saying that by 2030, they are going to cut down use of fossil fuel by 40%. So what's the implication of this for a country like Nigeria that relies 80% on export of crude for FX earnings? The implication of this for our reserves, we heard recently when JP Morgan said our reserve is effectively $6 billion, as against the 32 billion, 33 billion that we do report from time to time. Very far from what we normally report. And a lot of people have also said, what will be the role of Nigerian banks now, during the transition period, and then when we get to the final cutoff date. The cutoff date for Nigeria is 2060, as committed by the president, that's Muhammadu Buhari, in 2017 in Glasgow.
We've been at this for 15 years, and some of the presentations we have had have held or led national discourse. Mr. Tony Atta, the former managing director and CEO of LLNG, was our lead speaker last year. And he talked about the Nigerian oil and gas setting a new agenda. That was well received. And just like you said, it has made impact in policy decisions that we have seen. This year, we decided on the theme, which is promoting mental health, a national agenda. The whole essence is to draw attention to rising cases of mental ill health If you notice, you will find out that issues of suicide, depression, drug and substance abuse have been very prevalent in our society. Thank God that a new act was promulgated. We thought that this conference would encourage open discussion on what the issues are and what we should do as a nation. So we decided on what I'll call one of the best people to discuss it. The technical board decided to invite Professor Olayinka Omigbodun, who, as you know, is a leading scholar in that subject, and indeed the Provost of the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan. She did justice, and I must say that her presentation received a standing ovation. We had very serious discussions and debates on what the issues are.
A major takeaway from the Enlightening Forum is the need for policies that promote a sustainable environment, deepen climate resilience development, provide food security, and a review of the financial modeling for Nigeria's oil and gas industry.